Hope you have found this video useful. The best way to support the channel and ensure you don't miss our next upload is to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Part 38.14, Surah Saad, the letter Saad, the great news. Echoes from the Exalted Assembly. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed, your sanctuary for the deep intellectual and metaphysical excavation of the Holy Quran. In our previous session, we've witnessed the final collapse of the rebellious ego within the fires of the hereafter. We saw them searching in vain for the missing saints they once mocked, and we heard the majestic, silencing proclamation of Allah as the one, the all-dominant. Today, we transition from the dispute of the fire to the majesty of the heavens, in verses 66 through 70. The Quran broadens the lens from the destiny of man to the absolute sovereignty of the Creator. We will analyze the attributes of Allah as the Lord of the heavens and the earth and the Almighty, the Oft-Forgiving. We will excavate the concept of the Naba'un Azim, the Great News, and why humanity remains in a tragic state of turning away from the most important headline in existence. Most importantly, we will begin the excavation of the Exalted Assembly, peering into the celestial conversation that preceded our very creation. This is an excavation of cosmic authority, divine forgiveness, and the source of revelation. I, the Lord of the vertical and the horizontal, we begin with the declaration of the divine domain, a verse that anchors the reality of everything we see and everything we cannot see. This is the structural foundation of our existence. Kanzal Aman Quran, Surah Saad, the letter Saad, chapter 38, verse 66. Lord of the heavens and the earth, and all that is between them. The Almighty, the Oft-Forgiving. In this excavation, we see that Allah is not just the Lord of the end, but the Lord of the process. He is the Lord of the Bainahumatha, space between them. This refers to the intermediary realms, the atmosphere, the world of the unseen spirits, and the Barzakh. It means there is no neutral ground in the universe. Every inch of space, every frequency of light, and every heartbeat is owned by the Creator. Metaphysically, this verse presents a perfect, life-sustaining balance of divine names. Al-Aziz *, the Almighty, and Al-Ghaffar, the Oft-Forgiving. Be mighty without forgiveness would be a universe of pure terror. To be forgiving without might would be a universe of chaos and injustice. Allah is mighty enough to enforce the account of the rebellious, yet He is oft-forgiving Ghaffar for those who return. The use of Ghaffar, the intensive form of forgiveness, implies a perpetual covering. It suggests that the divine nature is to cover our faults repeatedly, provided we remain in a state of turning back to Him. 2. The proclamation of the great news. Allah now identifies the message of the Quran and the reality of the hereafter with a title that demands an immediate halt to all worldly distractions. He calls us to a singular focus. Kanzul Iman, Quran, Surah Saad, the letter Saad, chapter 38, verse 67. Say, that is a great news. The word Naba'un news implies information that is objectively true, highly significant, and requires an urgent response. It is not just talk, hadith, or opinion. It is news Naba'u. Allah calls it Azim, great, tremendous. In this excavation, we realize that the great news is the reality of the soul's survival. The day of account and the absolute oneness of Allah. It is the news that defines our home. For the excellent slave, this news is the North Star. For the rebellious, it is a headline they try to bury under the noise of the world. By calling it great, Allah is teaching us a lesson in value realignment. Everything else, wealth, politics, fame, is small news. This is the only information that remains relevant when the sun is folded up and the stars lose their light. It is the announcement of the King. 3. The tragedy of aversion. Turning away from reality despite the overwhelming greatness of this news. Allah describes the strange, self-destructive psychological state of the human race. It is a state of active avoidance. Kanzal Iman, Quran, Surah Saad, the letter Saad, chapter 38, verse 68. From which you are turning away. The word moridan, turning away, implies a conscious, active avoidance. It is not that they haven't heard the news, it is that they refuse to face it. They turn their backs to the light to avoid seeing their own shadows. This is the psychology of denial. Man distracts himself with the trivial small news of the material world so he doesn't have to confront the great news of his responsibility to Allah. In our Sufi excavation, this turning away is the root of all human anxiety. When you turn away from the sun, you are forced to walk into your own cold shadow. By turning away from the Naba'un Azim, humanity walks blindly into the evil return of verse 55. We are averse to the truth because the truth demands our ego's surrender, and the ego would rather perish in fire than surrender its pride. 4. The Exalted Assembly, the Celestial Dispute. The prophet pbuh is now commanded to speak of a realm completely beyond human perception, validating that his knowledge comes from the divine source, not from human books or traditions. Kanzal, Iman, Quran, Surah Saad, the letter Saad. Chapter 38, verse 69. I had no knowledge of the Exalted Assembly when they were disputing. Al-Malaylalay, the Exalted Assembly refers to the highest ranks of the angels, the celestial council that dwells in the presence of the throne. Knowledge of their dispute, Yaktasiman, refers to the profound dialogue that took place when Allah announced his intention to create Adam as. This is the metaphysics of revelation. The prophet pbuh is declaring his own human limitation to prove the divine origin of the Quran. I was not present in the celestial court. I am a man in the desert of Makkah. How could I know the intimate secrets of the angels unless Allah pulled back the veil? This verse shifts the scene from the dispute of the fire, verse 64, to the dispute in the heavens. It shows that even the highest beings had questions about the human mystery that is now being decoded in this very surah. It proves that the human story is the central topic of the cosmos. V. The function of revelation. The clear warner, the section concludes by defining the nature of the prophet's inspiration. He's not a magician, a soothsayer, or a philosopher, but a vessel for the divine alarm. Kinzelaman, Quran Surah Saad, the letter Saad. Chapter 38, verse 70. It is only revealed to me that I am a clear warner. The word inama only exclusively restricts the prophet's mission to its core purpose. He is not here to entertain or to satisfy the curiosity of the skeptics, but to inform. He is a vessel for why revelation. This excavation reveals the transparency of the divine message. He is a Nazarene Mubin, clear warner. The word Mubin means manifest, evident, and clarifying. His job is to make the great news so vivid and clear that no soul can claim ignorance for turning away. The revelation of the Exalted Assembly is not for celestial gossip. It is a warning of our origin and our ultimate destiny. It is a reminder that our story began in the highest heavens with the breath of Allah, and it is the ultimate tragedy to let it end in the lowest fire. Vi. Detailed excavation, the Lord of the in-between Bainahuma, to achieve our absolute word count depth. We must analyze the spatial metaphysics of verse 66 and its profound impact on the believer's spiritual orientation. The vertical sovereignty, by claiming the heavens and the earth. Allah is asserting that there is no secular space. Every atom in the heights and every grain of sand is under the active, moment-by-moment command of the Aziz Almighty. This destroys the dualism of religious and worldly. All is His. The intermediary realm, the mention of what is between them, refers to the atmosphere, the unseen energies, and the spiritual vibration of the world. It is in this between space that the great news descends. It is where the why revelation travels from the heavens to the earth. This intermediary space is where the battle for our hearts takes place. The stability of the names. Why Al-Ghaffar Oft-Forgiving here? Because when a human contemplates the vastness of the Lord of the heavens, he feels his own smallness, his failure, and his insignificance. Allah immediately balances his might with forgiveness. The mighty Lord is also the hiding, Lord who covers the stains of our earthly journey, inviting us to look up without fear. 7. The great news as the ultimate priority of the soul, verse 67 and 68 provide a sharp, piercing critique of human focus in a world of constant distraction and technological noise. The weight of Naba. In Arabic, Naba is not just a rumor kabar. It is information that is objectively true and carries a burden of action. The great news is the Quran, the announcement that the universe has a purpose, a king, and a day of return. It is the headline of the heart. The mechanism of aversion. Why do we turn away? Because the great news requires us to change our entire orientation. It requires the rebellious to become excellent slaves. Turning away is the ego's survival mechanism against the light. The tragedy of choice. Allah does not say the news is hidden or encoded. He says people turn away from it. The light is visible to everyone with an open heart, but the rebellious choose to walk in the opposite direction. This is the voluntary blindness that results in the eternal dispute of the fire. 8. Excavating the Exalted Assembly. Al-Malayolay verse 69 introduces a profound celestial mystery that grounds the human story in the unseen. This is the prehistory of our souls. The highest council, the Mala, are the angels who are filled with light and obedience. Even they disputed Yaqtasimin. This was not a dispute of rebellion or arrogance, but a dispute of seeking understanding. They asked, "Will you place therein one who spreads corruption?" This shows that the human experiment was highly scrutinized by the celestial beings from the start, the signature of prophethood. By mentioning this, the prophet pbuh is providing a verification code for his mission. A human being in 7th century Arabia could not guess the dialogue of the celestial court. This knowledge is a divine signature, proving that the prophet's mind was a mirror for the unseen. The contrast of disputes. We must compare the Tokasam dispute of the fire in verse 64 with the Yaqtasimin dispute of the angels in verse 69. One is a dispute of hate, blame, and fragmentation. The other is a dispute of awe, inquiry, and unity. One leads to the narrow bed. The other leads to the creation of the human being as the Khilaf, a representative of Allah Ikes. The clear warner and the mercy of clarity verse 70 defines the strict boundaries of prophetic knowledge and his ultimate duty to humanity. Revelation as a sacred filter. The prophet pbuh only knows what is revealed, yuha. He is the bridge between the Exalted Assembly and the human assembly. He does not claim to be Allah, Mubin, to be the vessel for the word of Allah. Mubin the clarifier. The warning is not vague or cryptic in a way that hides the truth. It is clear. Allah does not punish until he makes the truth manifest. The clear warning is actually a manifestation of divine mercy. It is the final call at the airport of life before the gates of the hereafter close forever. X. The metaphysics of cosmic authority and forgiveness verse 66 sets the stage for the dramatic story of creation. The fall of Iblis follows in the next part of the surah, the absolute king. Before Allah tells the story of Iblis's rebellion, he reminds us that he is the Lord of all that is between them. Iblis is also part of that between. He is subject to the Aziz. His rebellion does not threaten the throne. It only threatens himself. The Ghaffar, the forgiver. This name is a hint at the contrast between Adamez and Iblis. Adam sinned and was forgiven because he sought the Ghaffar. Iblis sinned and was cursed because he defied the Aziz. The great news is that forgiveness is the default setting of the avert universe for the excellent slave. She, the great news versus the great deception of the world. We must contrast the Naba'un Azim with the temporary dunya world that often feels so solid. The reality of the news is eternal, is the great news because it concerns the great return. Everything else we see in the news today is vanishing news, the deception of aversion. Turning away from the news is like a traveler turning away from a map in the middle of a desert storm. It feels easier to ignore the danger, but it leads inevitably to the evil destination Baisul Makar. Aversion is the fast track to regret. 12. The sociology of the Exalted Assembly. Why does Allah mention the angels' dispute at this specific point in the metaphysical journey of Surah Saad? The dignity of the human. The angels were discussing us. The great news includes the fact that our creation was a major debated event in the celestial realm. We are not cosmic accidents. We are the subjects of a heavenly decree. We were born into a world that was already talking about us. The humility of the slave. If the Exalted Assembly of pure light bows to the command of Allah, how can a lowly inhabitant of earth turn away in arrogance? The story of the angels is a mirror meant to shame the human ego into submission. 13. The prophet as the vessel of the unseen knowledge. Verse 69 and 70 protect the integrity of the Quranic message against worldly skeptics and modern rationalists, against the critics. The Meccan polytheists accuse the prophet of being a poet. Allah responds by giving him knowledge that no poet could imagine. The internal dialogue of the Malayolay is the ultimate inside information. The The sincerity of the warner. A clear warner does not seek worldly power, wealth, or followers. He seeks to save lives. The prophet's only goal is to deliver the Naba news before the day of account begins. He is the ultimate excellent slave because he has no agenda of his own. 14. The alchemy of remembrance and cosmic awareness. These 5 verses serve as a zikr reminder of our cosmic origin and our place in the hierarchy of being. Recalling the source, by mentioning the Exalted Assembly, Allah is taking our souls back to their point of origin. We are being reminded of the home we came from before we were placed in the between, ending the aversion. To stop turning away, we must realize that the news is truly great. We must reprioritize our internal headlines so that the divine word is the lead story of every day. We must become excellent slaves to the news. 15. Conclusion. The majesty of the return to truth. These 5 verses describe the sovereignty of the divine message and the tragedy of human indifference in the face of the infinite. The Almighty Forgiver, Allah is mighty enough to rule the vast expanding heavens, yet forgiving enough to send a warner to the rebellious. This is the mystery of divine love. The eternal headline. The great news is the only information that will remain when the stars are extinguished.
Ow.
Those who face it now will recline later in the gardens. Those who turn away now will find themselves in the dispute of the fire. The choice is ours, and the clock is ticking. Hadith. The Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, said, Allah says, I am as my servant thinks of me, and I am with him when he remembers me. If he remembers me in an assembly, I remember him in an assembly better than it, the Exalted Assembly. Sahih Bukhari. This hadith is the perfect commentary on verse 69. While the Exalted Assembly discussed the creation of man with inquiry, those who remember Allah on earth are mentioned in that same assembly with love and pride. The great news is that a simple slave on earth can become the topic of conversation among the highest angels through the simple power of remembrance. Zikr. Our news travels up to the throne just as his news travels down to our hearts. Let us now supplicate, drawing from the profound lessons of these verses, asking Allah to grant us a deeper understanding and to guide our every step. O Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and all that is between them, O Almighty, O Oft-Forgiving, we ask you to make our hearts receptive to the great news. Protect us from the tragedy of turning away, and let our eyes be fixed on your truth with absolute clarity and unwavering focus. O Allah, let us be among those who are mentioned with honor in the Exalted Assembly through our remembrance of you on this lowly earth. Grant us the courage to follow your clear warner and cover our faults with your attribute of Ghaffar. Let our return be beautiful and our news be joyful on the day of account. May Allah illuminate your heart and mind with the light of this divine ill. May He make your channel a beacon of guidance for all who seek spiritual clarity and truth. May your efforts be a source of immense reward, and may you be granted the highest stations of paradise. May the peace and blessings of Allah always be upon you and your loved ones. May He grant you unwavering steadfastness on the path of truth. May your work be a testament to His magnificent names, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Amin.